Good morning, everyone. We're privileged to start our day today by hearing from a truly distinguished legislative leader and a strong supporter of the nuclear industry. As Majority Whip, the Honorable James Clyburn of South Carolina is the third-ranking member of the U.S. House of Representatives. He's a 9-term congressman and really is a highly respected and effective leader in advocating for a sound energy policy for our country, one that clearly recognizes the critical role of nuclear energy in meeting the challenge of global climate change. Congress Clyburn has been and is a strong voice for nuclear energy within the House Democratic Caucus, and all of you can appreciate what that means for our industry. From my own conversations with him, I know he understands the challenges as well as the enormous potential of our industry. In fact, he recently co-hosted a mini-summit on nuclear energy. Congressman Clyburn is also a strong advocate for the consumer, especially those hardest hit by rising energy prices. He deeply understands the connection between energy policy and the consumer impact, so you can always find him pushing for a responsible way forward. Now, the Majority Whip and I hearken from the same part of the country, and we prize three things there: civility, plain talk, and common sense. I think you'll find our guest to be a master of all three. So it's my high honor and genuine pleasure to present the Honorable James Clyburn of South Carolina. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Bill, for being so kind with your introduction here this morning. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you and to share some concerns that all of us have about what's ahead of us going forward. I appreciate the role that Progress has played in helping South Carolina to move forward and, of course, vicariously our country as well. I also like to thank Mayor Fertel and Alex Flinthroy. She is a little bit blurry-eyed this morning. I think he was monitoring a little session that I understand went until 11:40 last night and wants me to get out of the way so he can get back up there and start back his duties by 10 o'clock this morning. But Alec and Mary, do a good job representing your interests here. I'm proud to have stood with you in this industry as we have gone through these legislative battles on what I consider to be vital issues of infrastructure spending, workforce investment, education, and a workable renewable portfolio standard that recognizes nuclear generation. And I'm very glad that we again find ourselves aligned as we work to pass a climate change bill that recognizes nuclear energy as a part of the solution. I have been very clear with the chairman, the speaker, and the Democratic leadership of how I feel about this, that climate change legislation must recognize the vital role of nuclear energy. We cannot solve this issue of climate change without a renewed commitment to nuclear energy. A few weeks ago, I sat down with the energy czar, Carol Browner, and she said to me in our visit, and I quote her here, "It is inconsistent to be for solving climate change and against nuclear power," end of quote. Which is why it gives me great pleasure to report to you that yesterday the House Energy Committee adopted a very important amendment to add a nuclear title to the legislation. If my information is correct, I have not followed up on this morning, but I think the vote was 51-6 in the committee. Now, to get to that point, I worked very closely with Chairman Dingell, who introduced the amendment, with Chairman Waxman, who we negotiated with over the last 3 or 4 weeks to get us to that point, with Leader Hoyer, who I usually sit next to in leadership meetings, to make sure that his commitment to this get a second when he speaks and a second when I speak. And many of you in this room, especially Hannah over here, with whom I have really enjoyed working to get us to the point. Now, the politics of nuclear energy were changing. And there's a reason for that. I recall last year when we moved the energy bill forward, we were very concerned about where we stood with the whole nuclear issue. I come from a state, South Carolina, where better than 50% of the electricity that we generate is from nuclear. We don't use all of that. We use around 38% of it. The rest of it we export. We have recently moved forward 2 new generators. We expect I think I read a week or so ago that the Energy Committee has gone forward with their approval. And so we expect for that issue to move into South Carolina, and I think all over the country. We see a significant shift. Now, how did we get to that point? Now, last year when we were discussing this issue, we brought it to the floor of my caucus. We were about to go out for the general elections, and everybody was sort of walking on eggshells. Nobody knew whether or not the polls were correct. People were having various problems in their congressional